Just set a quick agenda here, just so we all know how we're going to spend the time. So for the next 10, 15 minutes or so, it's mostly going to be my voice. Pamela, obviously, feel free to jump in should you feel inclined. And then we'll jump into a nice little Q&A session with a conversation around best practices with your tech stack and what's led to Pamela's team's impressive growth over the years. So for those of you who don't know, Breezeway, we are a partner of Streamline's, been working with them for a very, very long time, really, really strong integration. And we are a complete operations and hospitality services platform, hyper-focused on all the work that happens between bookings. So coordinating housekeeping, maintenance, vendors, communicating with guests, owner reporting. Like I said, everything that's happening between bookings is really what we're focused on. And when it comes to the technology, our philosophy is really simple. The technology should enable great hospitality, not replace it. So delivering true hospitality, a true hospitality moment, takes real work. It's more than just a transaction, and doing that consistently across a unique set of properties, authentic properties, is incredibly difficult. And that's where Breezeway comes in. We're going to bridge the gap between your PMS Streamline and the actual service delivery at the property. And when tools like Streamline and Breezeway work together, you're not just more efficient, and while that is incredibly, incredibly impactful, but one of the ripple effects of that improved efficiency is because you become more effective at delivering those elevated guest experiences that keep people coming back. So this is just a high-level overview of all the tools that Breezeway has to offer. Like I mentioned, everything between reservations, task scheduling, all the way to actually communicating with your guests, and happy to jump into that in more detail. But for today, for the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to report out on some of the key findings from our State of Work report. This is an annual report we do where we surveyed 350 hospitality professionals across the world, hearing from a wide range of operators. So from small teams just managing just a few homes to large portfolios with hundreds of properties, hundreds of employees. And within those teams, we really wanted to focus on housekeepers, maintenance techs, general managers, and operations directors. So excited to walk through some of those key takeaways with this group today. One of the first things that we noticed when looking at this data is that there's two pivotal moments in every property manager's journey. And Pamela, I'm excited to dig into this with you later because we're just kind of having a fun little conversation about this before we open it up. But the first one happens somewhere around 10 to 50 properties, depending on the types of properties you own, depending on the individual. But there comes a time where a guest reaches out to you asking where a TV remote is, or how do you turn on the hot tub, or something along those lines. Something that you've instinctively known, but you've now hit that property count where you can no longer rely on that instinct, right? You stop knowing those answers right off the top of your head, and you realize you need structure, an area where you can go and find that answer and relay that to that guest in a quick and efficient manner. The second pivot happens when your team grows. So, when you have other people answering those questions, suddenly the system that you have used previously, and for a lot of people, this is a system right here, right? It's all up in the brain. Obviously, those new employees, the people that you're now working with, don't have access to that information. So that system that once lived in your head doesn't transfer automatically to new staff. And without clear processes, without your SOPs documented in a very clear manner, it's incredibly difficult to deliver that same level of quality experience to your guests as it was previously. So two pivotal moments. As your property count continues to scale, it's a lot harder to understand and remember where things are at certain homes. And two, as you add on additional employees, making sure that they're going to communicate with your guests and other folks that you work with on the same level that you will. And you can only do that by having that clearly documented across your team. Next point I want to make. So it's not just about the volume and more properties and more communication and all that, but it's about the complexity of that work. So So there are two stats on this slide that really stick out to me on the top right and the top left. So top right, nearly 50% of operators experience last minute changes or guest related issues every single day. More than 90% say they're dealing with them at least weekly. And all of that work coordination, ordering parts, managing vendors, juggling all the different tasks that come up, they compound quickly. And when you think about what actually happens behind the scenes in conjunction with that, a cleaner calling out sick, reservation changing from a checkout to a back-to-back, a guest issue popping up that's urgent, right? It completely shifts your schedule, your workload, your stress level. And the only way that we can handle that constant change is to have an exceptionally strong baseline. Your systems and communication processes have to hold up even when things get chaotic, because quite frankly, that guest does not care that you might have 100 over same day turns that day. It is about them. They've paid likely a large sum of money to be at that home for the week, and they expect that white glove service. One other thing I did want to mention on this slide. So 90% of operators say that work involves coordinating with other people on a daily basis. And I think this is a really interesting point. And it highlights a fundamental difference between our industry and other industries. So the currency of your business is not software or data or processing fees or whatever it might be. It truly is how well can you handle the coordination of the work that needs to happen across your properties. It's something that is deeply collaborative, complex. I tell people all the time, hey, Breezeway, we help people coordinate work. And they're like, oh yeah, that sounds straightforward. But until you get your hands dirty into it and actually, get comfortable with it, you don't realize how incredibly complex this can get and how quickly it can get that way. So that collaboration, right? That local expertise is something that is your superpower. And this is just a bit of a side note, but I think what makes this industry so important in having that operational backbone so crucial, because the national brands, they can't replicate that. You know your properties, your people, your community. You're the one who can, if you need it, get a plumber on a Sunday because they're married to your daughter or whatever it might be, right? It's those local connections that are so crucial. So lean into that. And as we start to see the industry shift away from treating turnovers as transactions and toward delivering like true, real experiences, it really is important not to automate your local advantage away. You really got to lean into it. That's what makes our operations resilient and what makes your businesses truly indestructible. So we talk about guest expectations, owner expectations. I don't think this is going to surprise anybody on this call. I'm sure it's something that we have all felt. But guest expectations have fundamentally changed. So in our survey, 85% of operators said guest expectations have increased over the last 2 years. Guests today, they want hotel-like services. They expect extra towels for the beach, fully stocked kitchens, every supply ready to go. Depending on the operator, right? Being able to offer up grocery delivery, all these different things. It's these types of this white glove experience that guests are starting to expect. And one of the key tenets of that is the communication with the guest. It has to be instant, multi-channel, and if you don't respond quickly enough, that guest will ding you for it. And whether that's fair or not, ultimately it is the reality. I think one thing here when it comes to communication that people understand, but it's important to talk about, is it's not just how well we're responding to that communication, but it's really focusing on how that communication ties to the actual work being done. So responsiveness is great, but it's follow through that actually drives that experience for the guest. So if you respond fast but fail to execute, I would actually argue you've made things worse. It's that execution that's what earns trust, right? So on top of that, it's not just guests. I think this is another interesting trend we're seeing, right? Owner expectations are significantly rising too. 80% of operators told us their owners have become more demanding, while less than 0.5% said expectations have gone down. And I think that's because we're seeing a new type of owner emerge, more investment minded, more financially driven. They are familiar with ADR and RevPAR. They watch market trends. Many of them bought during the boom during COVID. They expect this to be a huge cash flow opportunity for them. And with higher costs and interest rates, they're under pressure. And as a result, all of us are under pressure as well. And they hold the operators accountable. So while reporting out on that revenue is incredibly important, there's another opportunity to help build trust through transparency. And that's not just to show them the revenue that their property is generating, but the care that you, the operator, are providing for their asset, their investment, their second home, their future retirement home, right? Showing the level of work you're doing there is crucial. So the preventative maintenance, the detailed reporting, visibility into the work that's actually being done, building such a strong relationship with the property that know it better than they do, is one of the things our CEO said recently that is very, very much so stuck out to me, because what happens is it becomes extremely difficult for that homeowner to switch property managers, because they'll sit down and they'll think to themselves, why would I go anywhere else? Pamela knows my property far better than I do. I don't know what type of air filters we use. I don't know what type of batteries the smoke alarm takes. This is a huge pain in the butt for me to think about changing properties. So by showing them that level of care, that level of attention to detail, you're putting yourself in an extremely competitive advantage for client retention. This one, we're not going to spend a ton of time here, but these are the most common issues that we believe are preventable as long as you have the right systems in place. So as guest expectations continue to rise, right, it's more important than ever for us to understand what is preventing a one-time guest from becoming a repeat customer. I don't think there's going to be anything super shocking on this slide. I'm sure everybody here has experienced this and is very well aware of it, but I think it serves us well to just quickly talk through them. So the number one experience killer, maintenance issues during the stay. So you think about it, guest is on vacation. They're had a great day at the lake. They're getting ready for a really fun dinner in town. They go to jump in the shower, no hot water. Moment completely derails the experience. And it's a reminder that staying on top of that preventative maintenance is crucial because it's part of your relationship with the property, right? Knowing that property better than the homeowner does. Have we built the right operational processes to be proactive, to catch these issues before guests ever walk in the door? I think that's the key theme for this slide. Proactivity versus reactivity is incredibly important, and having the right tools in place to enable you to do that. Another one we can talk about here, right? Cleaning, that's pretty self-explanatory, but I think the one point to make is, hey, it's not, is the property clean in line with our expectations? Is it in line with the expectations of the guest? So I would encourage everybody here, if you haven't done it, do a shadow stay at your property or one of your properties. Don't tell anybody, pretend it's a normal guest, show up, try to start to use a lot of the amenities that are there. Ensure it actually operates the way that it is actually operating in your head. So just a little bit of a side note there. Highly encourage it. Incredibly impactful. You'd be very surprised at some of the things that you learn. So last slide here before we jump into conversation. Technology should empower your team, not replace the human touch. The reality is AI is absolutely going to change how we work in hospitality. It already is, from automated messaging to smarter scheduling. It's significantly reducing the amount of administrative work teams have to manage. But with that, right, for every benefit AI brings, expectations are going to rise right alongside it. Owners will expect you to use these tools to operate more efficiently. And because of that, they'll expect a more personalized level of human service. The balance is shifting, less admin work, but higher expectations for real, genuine hospitality. So to bring it all back to how we started the presentation, that's why our philosophy at Breezeway is simple. Automation is critical. Use it to drive efficiency, but it is there to enable the human touch, not replace it. Use AI, like I said, use automation to open up more moments where you can connect personally, build relationships, show genuine care. Because at the end of the day, guests really only feel hospitality through authentic human effort. And I think that's one of the key things in our industry. And that's why people are going to these homes because they want to feel that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead, stop sharing my screen. And Pamela, excited to jump into a Q&A. Looks like you just need to come off. There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's jump right into it. Pamela, do you want to just do a quick little background on Lake Days, Casago, how many properties, where you're located, et cetera, and then we can jump into some more meaty questions.
Sure, that would be fine. We started in 2021 with 2 properties, one that we owned, and then we got one unsuspecting owner to say yes to be our first contract. Went through that season just testing what it looked like to do this, and then started adding properties in September 2021. We are at Lake of the Ozarks. We are exclusive to Lake of the Ozarks, so we don't do what we do in any other markets or explore any other market areas. We currently have 181 properties live, 8 pending live, and we are the largest vacation rental manager here at Lake of the Ozarks. Started as a family-owned company. We engaged with Casago in January of 2024 as our growth really had demands of resources that they filled a gap for us. And one of those was Streamline. Breezeway, however, we found on our own, and we found it in our 2nd year, and we've been using it ever since.
Awesome. So first and foremost, congratulations on the impressive growth. It's just phenomenal to hear. Would love to understand. So, one of the things I mentioned was it's kind of like a breaking point, right? So like, how many properties were you managing? I know we kind of talked about this before, but what was that breaking point where you really realized that you needed something different and you need to change how you're operating?
So for us, so we're a family-owned business. We have 6 kiddos. We had 4 kiddos here at the lake that came here with us and were part of the business for everything from laundry to cleaning, inspecting, that type of thing. But one thing that was critical for me was an inspection of every property. We hit around 25 properties coming into May, Memorial Day 2022. And we engaged with Breezeway at that time, but we didn't figure it out and fully implement until September. And so we went through 2022 doing everything we wanted to do at a breaking point, meaning I'm not going to say that there were bad guest experiences. Let's just say the balance of work and family, though, did not exist at all because we were trying to pull it all off. We didn't have systems. And we finally implemented Breezeway in September of 2022, which is really when we started hiring people and needed to start to get some of the things that we wanted done able to happen beyond a conversation. And Breezeway filled that gap initially. Now, where we use it today is leaps and bounds beyond where we used it then. But in the beginning, it was the need for a basic inspection.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you mind going a little bit deeper on some of those, like on a day-to-day, like some of those pain points you're experiencing? Was it guests reaching out, asking for a piece of information? Is it making sure your level of your standard for the quality of the care of the homes is being transitioned across your team? Would love to hear a little bit more.
So that first year, and there's different breaking points. And as we mentioned, I feel those breaking points are kind of based on the nature of the leadership of the company and the individuals who can handle what's in their brain, how to get it out, and how they can process that. So my capacity is pretty high, which means I'm pretty unreliable in a lot of areas because I'm really good at managing the unpredictable. But anything consistent is a challenge. You can ask my team. But I was able to do that. And where it was a breaking point for me was when I couldn't answer the questions that I felt I should know. And you mentioned that earlier, like you don't know where that remote was. I was actually pretty good at that visual recall of where things were. I was spending so much time focusing on that. I was forgetting the goal of the owner. I was
Mm,
forgetting what the owner wanted in that one bedroom where they put that special pillow that their grandma gave them for the vacation rental.
yeah.
Those pieces were missing. And to me, those pieces are the hospitality pieces, those details. And I was getting beyond the point of being able to recall that. And I needed that to live somewhere outside of my brain. And it
Yeah.
took a long time. And, word of advice, I thought I was saving money by not hiring people to put them in the place to build the systems that we needed to build. But the truth was, it took so much longer to get the information there because I waited so long. That was definitely a
Mm,
mistake for me. So the earlier you can take what's inside of your brain and get it into a system, the better for everybody that's involved, even if it seems like it's not quite necessary yet.
yeah. Yeah. I want to expand on one of the things you mentioned because I think it's such an interesting point. The goal of the homeowner, right? And I think there are so many different goals that they can have. What are some of the most common you're seeing, and how are you interacting with those?
So that's a great question. 85% of our owners here are dual use, meaning that they use their property primarily as a dual personal use and investment,
Yeah.
and their personal use is high. We do have some that are primarily investment, but they still occasionally personal use, and then we have another portion that is investment only, never stay at their property. So that's one level of goals. The other level of goals is an email that I got this morning wanting to know why we had the olive and cream flowered blanket on a bed instead of the basket where it's intended to be.
Hmm.
That's a
Yeah.
different type of goal.
Yeah.
And the our team, and this is, transitional. Over time, we'd be like, that's just not possible. And more recently, as we've matured in what is possible, why isn't that possible? If that blanket is the critical point to that owner being comfortable with us taking care of their asset and delivering it as a vacation rental, why can't we make that blanket our priority? And
Hmm.
how can we make the blanket our priority? And Breezeway is critical in how we make that blanket our priority and how we communicate that to our staff. But their
Yeah.
goals are very different. And some of their goals is retaining a design, retaining an experience that they created. And it doesn't matter that 180 people stayed there in the last 6 months. They expect it to be retained.
Yeah.
So how do we do that?
Yeah. No, I think it's such good insight. Especially in the dual use homes, right? Where you're gonna have the homeowners there and making sure that when they show up, it's gotta feel like home because that's what they're looking for. And making sure you have the process in place is so, so important. Um, want to transition, shift gears a little bit here. We were talking about earlier about the importance of getting, the information that lives in your head into a system early on. There are as this industry continues to expand and evolve, there are so many different technology vendors and ways to do that. What advice would you give operators who feel overwhelmed by all the technology options that are out there?
This is advice that I had been given as we hit, I feel 100 is a breaking point. I don't care who you are. It's a nice round number, and I don't care if it's 90 or 110, but you're going to break something at 100. And so when I was hitting that point, a great piece of advice I was given was talk to the people who are at the number you want to be at and find out what they're using.
Mm,
And that's what I did. I feel our next significant breaking point is 250. And I reached out to people that were above 250, so closer to the 300 mark. I wanted to know what they were using, how they used it, and how it interacted, and did it sustain being used when they were at only 150?
yeah.
Because some of those high enterprise systems are great at 300, but are they feasible at 100? So those were
Right.
great conversations.
So interesting. I think it's a great way to do it. It's great advice. I've heard very similar advice in different contexts. Obviously, I'm not, managing a property management business, but say, you want to get somewhere, go talk to somebody that's already there and learn from them. So I love that insight. Um, I think one of the most common things we'll hear when we're in prospective conversations with property managers about adopting a tool like Breezeway or quite frankly any technology that's going to be used in the field is team members that are resistant to change. So was that something that you experienced, and how did that go overall?
Um, in the beginning, no, because there wasn't anything before Breezeway.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, no. When we changed PMS systems and how we interacted with Breezeway based on a new PMS system, it was not that significant either.
Okay.
Where it became the most significant, I feel, is most recently we have a change in how we're doing scheduling and how people see Breezeway and what they see in Breezeway and what we are defining Breezeway as. So we are shifting Breezeway to become a source of truth for our organization versus a spreadsheet. That we are seeing resistance on because it looks different on how our representatives, meaning our cleaners, our inspectors, see their week at the start of the week versus how they see their day at the start of the day.
Mm.
So what we have done is, I just did this last week. I did a video education. Here's where we were. Here's where I want to go. This is why we're in the middle. And these are the reasons why it couldn't stay where it was before.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's important for people of all of those things to know why it couldn't stay the way it was before. And in our situation, we had one person doing scheduling, incredibly intelligent and talented, and everything lived in her brain. And we can't do that if we're going to get to 250, we can't do that anymore.
Mhm.
And so we need those things, just like at that time when it had to come out of my brain, it has to come out of hers. And again, learning, you would think I would have learned the first time. The earlier we would have done that, the better it would have been. But we waited a long time, too long in this case, and we're having to pick up pieces because of it.
Yeah. It's humbling, It's like, oh, I can't remember that. I can't do that all in my head anymore. But I think your sentiment is spot on. It's the sooner you can do it. Well, it is swallowing a bit of a pill. It has a ton of ripple effects for your business as you look to scale the overall happiness of the staff, etc. So, um, is there so we've talked a couple times about making changes with Breezeway, but whether it's Breezeway related or other technology that you've used, is there some sort of technology decision that you're most proud of or most excited about? Um, could be in the past or anything that's maybe upcoming. Would love to learn, what's exciting, Pamela, when it comes to technology in the space right now.
So probably the proudest thing for my team is because of our relationship with Costco,
Hmm.
because of what Streamline has to offer, which is a more of an enterprise software versus the PMS we had previously, because of all of the things that are available, our staff has done incredibly well at trying to prove why we should dispose of paid programs and use available programs. And they will test and ask the question, can it do that? Because we don't go to a software looking at what does the software do. We look at this is what we are going to do. How does the software work for that?
Yeah.
And so repeatedly, they have been able to prove in two instances. One is Breezeway, actually, and the other is in our guidebook system, that what we have available to us that I don't write a checkout for is not worth the value that I am writing the checkout for. That there's greater value in the programs that we have that we're investing in because of what they provide in the end. And I think that I take pride in that because they didn't just say, easy is saying, yep, we're not changing because we like what we have and we're not willing to look at everything else. They truly did test the available systems and proved why they wouldn't work before we made the decision to stay where we're at.
Yeah, I think that is such an interesting point. Because to your point that like the easy way out is nope, like it's extra money, we're not going to use it, we'll make do. But operating through the lens of, hey, no, this is how we're going to operate. We need a tool that aligns with it.
Mhm.
Uh, is there anything like specifically during those searches that really stuck out to you about like, yeah, like this is why we use a different guidebook. This is why we use Breezeway. Like, is it ROI? Is it the guest experience? Is it
Well, you can't have a guest experience if you don't have an owner experience.
right? Yeah.
So that blanket is a perfect example.
Yeah.
One of the systems we were looking at, you could only put in one picture per element, one picture per room, to show the intended nature or delivery of that room. So the only way that we would be able to capture that blanket, for example, is the basket in the room would have to become an element of the property,
Mhm.
which can't exist unless that element is part of the operational structure of the property.
Awesome. Yeah.
So if I need to know where that blanket is because of that owner's experience, their goal, that program doesn't work for me. So
So interesting. Yeah.
probably the best example.
No, that's a great example and great insight. I'm happy I asked. So thank you for sharing. Um, so one last question for you, panel, before we open this up to some Q&A for the attendees here. But what would be you can pick and choose here, the number one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who's looking to scale from 25 to 180, 250, so on and so forth. Or what has been like the number one most important learning moment for you throughout this journey?
That wasn't on my list of
I
questions.
know, sorry, I just came up with it. I apologize.
Um, oh boy. Um, the one I could dive into really deep. So let's stick on the technology side. Um, as you evaluate technology options, don't evaluate where they're at, evaluate where they were,
Hmm.
and evaluate where they say they're going. And if where they were, um, and that's a hard one because there's a lot of new tech out there that's going to be good tech. Um, but still knowing where they were, even if it's a newer tech, how did they start? Why did they start? What was the pain point? There's a PMS out there that started because there was a couple of people that didn't have a PMS and they wanted a PMS, but they were too small to be enterprise and they started a PMS. I mean, what is the purpose of where they were at 5 years ago? Where are they at right now and where are they going? Because there's a lot of sales out there.
Yeah. I think it's
And
I
it
think that's
needs to
such
be
a good
aligned.
point. Yeah. Yeah, it's such an invaluable piece of feedback because and like really asking about the businesses too, it's like how do you onboard? How do you retain customers? Like, what does that all look like? This can't just be a feature show. It needs to be a true partnership. And what is that going to look like for me as the operator? Is it aligned with our business? If there's something that's broken with the tool and I need to get in touch with somebody at 10 p.m. on a Saturday, can I do that? Right. So those are all
Yeah.
super, super important.
I feel that, and as far as like what are the greatest learns, um, is I'll just say to listen to your people.
Yeah.
Because that statistic you showed about the daily chaos, creates noise that interferes with the things that we should listen to.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Awesome. Well, Pamela, thank you so much for the insight. Super, super impactful. I know I learned a ton. Mike, I think we're moving into Q&A, so I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, if you have any questions, type them in the questioning queue, and we'll field as many as possible. I'm absolutely blown away by this conversation. So much good information. Love to hear all of it was just spectacular. So great job, guys. And you know, in reference to one thing you're talking about, I call it shiny object syndrome because I think people with tech tend to just see features and they get stars in their eyes. But that is really good advice in terms of where a company's been and where they're heading. And I think both Breezeway and Streamline have proven to be long-term solutions that are built over time and built to sustain. So not that I need to sell Streamline to our PMs that are on the call. They're using Streamline, but it's definitely
Yeah.
one of our strengths. One other note, when you were talking about the blanket story, it made me think of that book, Who Moved My Cheese? So I think a VR related sequel would be Who Moved My Blanket?
There you go. So who moved my cheese? We have that book in our office, but I've found that people's attention to book learning is more limited. So there is a YouTube video that's part of our required orientation, and it's a summary of who moved my cheese. So
That cracks me up because I'm not an avid reader by any means, and I flew through that book.
I know it's a good one.
Pretty
I
short.
can't tell you, I have literally bought and given away hundreds of that book.
That's funny. Who moved my blanket? We have a shy group. I think one of the other lessons here is, and I know some of the best PMs on Streamline use this, is, you know, when I hear you talk, Pamela, it reminds of how much good information, peer-to-peer information there's out there. And, you know, obviously we want to help our PMs as much as we can. But when you talk to other PMs, you get so much real world experience that we can't offer as a supplier, as a SaaS company. So we really appreciate when this kind of format where we get to hear all these good best practices from an operator like yourself.
LinkedIn has been a great resource because we didn't know this existed as an industry. And so as I saw, well, who are these people and who follows who? And then I'd look at how many properties they'd have. And so my outreach wasn't an introductory outreach. It was pretty random. Some people probably thought I was kind of stalkerish, but it was paying attention to who was doing what I wanted to do. So
nice. I'm a little bit embarrassed because I realized as you were talking, I met you at CasaCon last year.
that's okay. Yes, we met. And we adore your wife.
Me too. I'm still not seeing anything. I know it's not locked. Apparently you guys covered everything ever in property management. So, all right. Well, with that, I guess before we sign off, Will, any last words? Or Pamela?
No, nothing immediate. I think, you know, if anything Breezeway related struck a chord, I can shoot my email out, Mike. You know, we absolutely adore Streamline as a partner, super critical. You know, and those two tools together are super impactful. So always happy to share more about Breezeway. I want to make sure this isn't like too much of a sales pitch or anything, but you know, we're obviously extremely passionate. So connect with me on LinkedIn. My email is will.morrison@breezeway.io. So you know, would love to connect with as many people out there, even if it's just to connect and talk more about the industry itself.
Great. And as we were doing our countdown, we had a last minute question that came through. If you want to relay that, or do you want me to read it?
Yeah, so reading it right now. So great question, Brooke. The way that we handle this is our mobile app. So that's going to be the interface that your field staff is interacting with. So your cleaners, your maintenance techs, etc. You can have that application translated into a large list of languages. So the full app itself, as well as the checklist, everything that lives there can be fully translated. So it's easy to use for folks where English is not their primary language. So in that sense, we do it. The one thing that we don't do is if they are communicating back to you via comment within that mobile app, we're not going to automatically translate that from Spanish or French or whatever the language might be back to English. I've talked to the product team about it. There's just so many different variances and dialects and different things like that. It's a very, very complex product, but we've seen a lot of folks with success just throw it into Google Translate and then update the comment itself.
Great.
Yep.
All right. Well, with that, I guess we'll close this webinar. We appreciate everyone being here and hope everyone has a great rest of your Thursday. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you.